I mean, my first reaction was, just, thinking of the families and, everybody involved and the first responders. And, thinking back of the moment, uh, you know, um, you know, when we were involved in the crash and the state of shock and the eeriness that surrounds an accident like that, and how important it was that the community support one another. And I also remember how important it was that I remember the families trying to get information, whose kid it was. All they hear is it's fatalities. There's this many fatalities. There's that many fatalities. Nobody really knew, and I remember, one of the things that sticks with my mom, and I remember those that were others on the team, was that none of the parents knew. None of the parents knew, and they heard this story and they heard that story, and I just think that it's really critical that before we start, throwing numbers out there and names out there, that it's confirmed and it's real, because parents can't get a hold of their kids either, and I just remember that, and I remember that being a big part of, and how much that impacted the families that were waiting for the game in Humboldt or in Regina. Well, it's massive. I mean, it's this awful accidents happened. There's fatalities. Is it my kid? Isn't it my kid? I need to get there. And, and I think even the community of Humboldt and, friends and, who is it? What can I do? How do I respond? And then I think of the individuals that survived the crash. And the survivor's guilt that comes with that, and I could have done this, and maybe I should have done that, and how I can help with this. And I think that one of the things that I've realized, and that I had to deal with, and that I know others have that have been through the crash, is we never understood why we felt the way we felt. We never understood, and we couldn't put a finger on why we just didn't feel right. And I think that, if I have any advice for people, if you're going through a traumatic event like this, and you're not feeling right, it's normal. And, and I also learned that the best thing that we can do with one another in these times is to just support one another and show up for one another. It's not words all the time. It's just showing up for one another and pulling together as a community, not apart. Well, I mean, you're losing your teammates and your friends. You're losing your son. You're losing your friend. And I think that those have long-lasting impacts. And I think we've learned a lot since 1986 around trauma and PTSD. And I think that we need to make sure that we're offering the support to everyone involved, to make sure that we're doing everything that we can, and that they can, to make sure that they're receiving the help that they can to get through this. And I also know too that that events like this are horrific, and they have huge impact. But I also know that as a community and as people, you can get through it too, and you can get through it with pulling together and supporting one another, and accepting the fact that I probably feel terrible and I'm struggling, and that's normal. And I think sometimes when we don't want to accept the fact that this really had the impact, that the real impact that it has on us, I think, we'll always struggle. Yeah, I mean, the hockey community is a massive community across this country, and I think that there's lots of support, and because I think people can relate. Many people have been on buses or vehicles traveling to and from games in snowy weather, and I think that people, it's a time to reflect and think of all the times and miles that they've put on, and you know, I just, you know, I didn't know what to say when, you know, when I was asked to come and comment, and I think that, you know, the most important thing right now that I believe is key for people to think about and people to do is you know, we just need to be there for one another and people that are struggling, because what I do know in these types of events is that the impact is real, and that's what we need to know, and we need to always keep that at front of mind, and you know, and I think that, you know, when we look at a community, this isn't just the hockey community. I think that as a community like Humboldt and others, whether we've cheered for the team or not, I think it's a time that we need to show our support and show up for these kids and families and first responders.